Good morning, it's Rian Kutsi again from Fortis Proactive Defense Solutions in Pretoria, and I am still in conversation with Claire and Tonine, two instructors on the loan operator course. Today we're going to be talking about the growth process in essence. Once you've made that decision that you are going to get yourself a firearm, to go from there to become more proficient. How does training fit in? How important is training? How often should you train? And how relevant should training be to everyday situations? So can we start? Here, I want to start with you, Time. You've now just your firearm, and I'm going to go and say this now first firearm. What next? Where do I go from?
Okay, obviously that's quite a difficult one, especially as women. What we face is because 9 out of 10 times our firearms have probably been purchased or given to us by our boyfriends, husbands. And then, yeah, we sit with this firearm at home, and what do you do with it? So you go to your competency, obviously, to license the thing. You maybe shoot 10 times, and then what? So I think the very important thing is for women to actually take the stand, to go and stand on a range and to go and fire that thing and to go learn how it works. And it's a very difficult thing for a woman to face in this country. The firearm community is still very much a man's world. So I think almost any woman you speak to is going to tell you about the challenges she faced to get proficient in her firearm. So what next? It's to take a step and to do some research on how to carry it, etc. How to actually use it. So the biggest thing is to go and find a training course and actually learn how to use the weapon.
So that journey will then probably start by starting to research such training facilities in your immediate area.
Yeah.
And then doing some research on maybe the instructors or the owners of this facility to see
Absolutely.
what you're letting yourself in.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's a very difficult thing. And most ladies end up getting taken to the range by their spouse, by their partner, and they try and teach them, end up getting frustrated, and the firearm sits in your safe or in your house or for years. And that happened to me. My personal story was I was given one for Valentine's Day, like 15 or 16 years ago. And I did my competency. I went to the range 2 or 3 times, and I just never, ever took another step. And then I can't remember exactly what happened, but there was a situation where I woke up one day and I thought to myself, you know what, this has to stop. I've got to actually get proficient, and I've got to start putting myself out there and training. And I used to have nightmares about being in a situation, taking my firearm and deploying, and then I'd get a stoppage, a malfunction, and it would just be an absolute mess. And yeah, that's when I took my step. I decided I'm going to start training and I found a couple courses that I did, and then eventually I found loan operator, and that for me changed my entire life. So, and I became proficient, and I've done course over course over course over the years.
Can I just add that I'm still stuck on the flowers and chocolates thing for Valentine's Day. So the gun thing is like a bit of a revelation for me. Maybe I must make a mental note. Tonine, where did you start your journey?
Rian, I grew up on a farm, so safety has always been an issue. And then one day we went to a firearms event, and I thought, okay, well, someday I have to get my own firearm, and I was quite willing to get one, but I actually didn't have a clue where to start. So having a husband that grew up with firearms and hunting and all those things, he was quite comfortable with it. But it is even harder sometimes being a wife with a husband that is really trained and really good at what he does already, because you tend to get to a space in your mind that I don't have to do anything. He's going to save me. He's going to be my savior. He can go out at night and see if everything is safe, or if there's, you know, a situation, he's the one responding the whole time. But then you get to a point that you realize, but he's not home. He's working. And then you're alone. What now? And then later in our marriage, we started getting kids. What now? Even more important to be able to not just protect myself, but being the responsible person or managing the kids the whole time, because I'm the one driving the kids around. I'm the one looking after the kids during the day. Or if I'm finished working, you're the one that actually with them the most, and probably going to be their first responder. So once I had a firearm, or I got the firearm, he literally just told me, just feel the firearms, feel what works for you or feels good. From there, I needed training. So there's only that much that you can learn from not going to a proper training facility. And I think that is really important, is where you get your training from. For me, I wanted it to be functional. I didn't purchase my firearm for sport shooting or for the sport and the fun of it. I purchased the firearm to protect myself. And there was actually a couple of years that passed before I started training, because I haven't found a place that could actually teach me functional scenarios. That could teach me, okay, what happens if I drive in a car? Or, it needs to be applicable to my daily life and my daily activities. So the moment I came across the loan operator program via a client of mine in my shop, they told me about it. It's called AHA. This is not just something that's just going to help me shoot a target and count for points and as a sport. This is something that can really, really help me with when I'm at the shop, when I'm working with my kids, when I'm driving around. So yes, and it's actually after that only that I started carrying my firearm on me that I really felt confident. Because up to that point, before I started my training, you feel unsure, and that fear factor in your mind is much more when you don't have training, because you're not proficient in this equipment. It's like carrying a phone with you. You're not going to carry that phone with you if you don't have a clue how to use it. Then you're going to leave it at home, because why do I have it with me?
Claire, we're now on training subject. So once you've started this journey, how often should you do this? Should you do it like once a year, once in 5 years, once in a lifetime, which is what I've had as well with people, or do you think it's better if you just do it on a regular basis and really get involved?
So absolutely, I think as with most things, being able to shoot is a perishable skill. It's not something that you're going to pick up your firearm after a year of not touching it and you're going to be able to shoot properly. People like to think that, but it doesn't work like that. If I take even 2 months that I don't touch my firearm and I go back on the range, suddenly I can't hit a little small circle anymore, and my shooting is all over the place, and my draw stroke is terrible, and I'm fumbling on my mag changes. So it absolutely is something you have to do on a regular basis. It's something you need to do often, and you need to revisit the fundamentals all the time. As I said, you forget, your body forgets, and you have to carry on training and learning new scenarios, putting yourself in different situations, learning how to shoot out of a vehicle, learning how to shoot on your knees, learning how to shoot from the ground. All of those to me are very important, because I always say to people, we all have these fantasies in our mind of how we're going to react in a situation. And I can guarantee 9 out of 10, even your trained professionals don't react the way that they think they're going to. There's always something that comes on that you've forgotten how to do it. So you know, your body needs to become like memory. You should be able to have that gun out in front of you without even realizing that you did it. It's muscle memory, and you have to train that.
So, being ladies, and the whole point of this conversation is your clothing styles differ often vastly from men's clothing. How do you factor that in when you do training? Like, you know, one day you're wearing a dress, next day you're wearing long pants, next day you're going to gym with those gym tight, I don't know what you call them, you know what I'm talking about. How do you factor all of that into the training part specifically? Because it means you're drawing different every time. Do you work at dry firing and drawing? Do you attend to that on the actual range? Where does that fit?
It's good.
That's a left.
Rian, I think on the range, it's hard to address that because everyone's clothing is vastly different. But what I do believe is your everyday carry and where you carry your firearm should be as close as possible as how you train on the range. There are, for instance, if you have a side carry on the side, if you're carrying your gun on your side or appendix in front, then train like that on the range. And then for your everyday, have it as close to possible as that exact position. So appendix, you can either have it on your thigh in front, the draw stroke and everything stays the same. And then definitely dry firing that. We really advocate dry firing. It doesn't cost you money. And it's really, really important to, as Claire said, you have to imprint this in your subconscious. It has to become muscle memory. If you're in a situation, your brain cannot think of any new information it needs to attend to. It goes back to that subconscious, what you have imprinted into your muscle memory, what to do. So if you, for instance, train with your firearm in front in appendix position, and now you decide, oh no, my clothes is different. I'm gonna carry it now at the back because you can't see it printing on your t-shirt. When something happens, really, really happens, and it's in that split second, you're gonna try to draw from the appendix position. Is there's not going to be any gun, and you're gonna have a moment of total blank and think, okay, did I leave it at home? Did I forget my firearm? Oh no, I actually just moved it on my body to a different position. So training as you are going to fight is really important.
Oh. So Claire, I know I left fielded you a little bit there, but that's part of my job, you know. How do you figure out as you go on with your training? Because I know in lone operator you spend probably half the year busy with fundamentals of your firearm and getting your shooting up, you know, increasing your probability of scoring hits and making you a better shooter with your gun. How do you, or do you find that as you go along, your thinking changes about where do you want to carry and how do you, and what do you want to carry and so on?
Yeah, it absolutely does. I think, you know, I started off with a smaller pistol, easier to conceal, and I quickly realized halfway through that the recoil on my particular firearm was really bad, and I never shot it properly. And then I started realizing, I mean, that's a whole nother video if you want to go down this road, but you know, so absolutely, the more you experience and the more situations you're in, let's take being in a vehicle, for instance. If you're going to have your firearm maybe in the small of your back, how are you going to draw that thing? And if there's 5 layers of clothing over it, or say now it's cold and it's winter and you've got 6 jackets and 4 layers, and you know, so every situation that we end up being in on the range, every course that we do starts to show us how important it is to have your firearm within reach. And and how many magazines do you have with you, because you very quickly realize that maybe 15 shots isn't going to be enough. Am I going to be able to take down multiple attackers if I've only got 15, or some smaller firearms maybe only have 6 rounds? You know, how many magazines do I have on my person? How much ammo do I have within each? So it definitely does affect what we carry and what we decide is important. And then we also do a medical course. We do a stop the bleed course, and then you start realizing the importance of having a tourniquet or chest seal, wound packing, that kind of thing. You know, if you're in a situation, how would you apply first aid to you or your loved ones? And that then makes it important. You know, I ended up with no tourniquets. Now I have like probably about 4 in my car, and every drawer in my house has got one, and my handbag's got one. And then one thing that we learn is the importance of obviously the chest seals, the wound packing, and your space blankets, your emergency blankets. And I'll bring a situation up there where it actually really helped me to have that in my car. I mean, they're so cheap. You buy them at Discount. I think they're like $20. And so because of the training I'd received, I started making sure that I had these things within reach. And a year ago, my daughter was in a really bad horse riding accident. And she ended up, it was winter, and she ended up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon lying on cold ground. And she went into hypothermic shock. So by the time I got to her, she was already almost blue. And I immediately said to everybody, okay, there's 2. She was shivering. She was like delirious. So I said to everyone, okay, in my handbag and in the cubby hole in my car, you'll find space blankets. Please go get them for me. And I asked the people at the riding yard for another one. And we took them and wrapped them around her. And I am about 100% convinced that it saved her life, because it took them a good hour to warm her up after that. So, you know, without that on me, and without me having the knowledge that I had to use that to actually apply that to her, you know, they'd put a blanket over. That's great. She had a fluffy blanket on top of her, but she was lying on cold ground. And that's one of the things we learn, you know. So I immediately went and wrapped it as much as I could without moving her too much, because we were worried about spinal injuries, obviously, with falling off a horse. You know, and I honestly think that knowledge probably saved my daughter's life. And if I didn't have that, then what? You know, would the ambulance have got there in time? Would they have been able to reverse the effects of hypothermic shock? So yeah, to answer your question, you definitely do. As you train, as you learn, it changes. You know, I went from having, you know, maybe my firearm, just that, to now having a knife, to having medical equipment, to having all these things that I've learned to become proficient in, and realizing the importance of having them on me at all times. So yeah, as you learn, as you grow in the community, definitely.
Okay. So, Tonine, I think the underlying message here is, over and above the training, is that whatever you decide to carry on you as part of your EDC, you actually need to have a good knowledge of how to apply that as proficiently as possible.
Absolutely, Rian. Before I started the loan operator course, I didn't actually know what a tourniquet was. So, and I think a lot of ladies doesn't really realize how little they know until you start training these things. So if someone told me, you have to have a tourniquet and you have to have your gun because you do have a gun in your safe, and you have to have a knife and all those things, and I just chuck it in my handbag and put it on my, carry it on my person, what would that help me without the knowledge of how to use it? If someone told me before the course, you have to have a tourniquet on you, this is this thing, and just have it, what am I going to do? I'm not going to effectively be able to use it. I'm probably not even going to think about it.
Yes.
And then someone said, okay, you know, tourniquet is that strap you have to bind it around your arm or your leg to stop the bleeding, for in case you were shot or have massive bleeding on your extremities, on your arms or your legs. Oh, okay, cool. So now I know why it's important, and not really know what to do with it, but I know what it is. Okay, now how do you use it? So during the course, they don't just explain how to use it, but you practice it. You have to practice it over and over and over to efficiently use it when you're experiencing adrenaline dump in a situation. So knowing what to do with your items that you carry on your person or in your handbag or wherever you're going to choose, and this is something you're gonna play around with. You are going to change your setup a couple of times. If I think back, just during the first year of lone operator, I changed my setup quite a bit, from not carrying to carrying, and then from not carrying my firearm one up versus empty chamber, and that's not something you are forcing yourself to do. The program was just so excellently worked out that your mindset actually developed slowly but surely, and you do it because you are convinced, you know why, and you have your own why and your own reason for carrying one up, and it's because you feel proficient and you know how to do it.
I think that's a nice comprehensive answer, and I think I'm going to conclude with that. I think that really highlights the value of continuous training, and obviously more and more intensive training, getting put into pressure situations so you can learn how to handle it, and growing your own perspective and thoughts and ideas and your knowledge of what you can and cannot do, and how to work on those problem areas as you go along. So I think we can all conclude that training is as crucial for any lady as it is for any man out there.
I absolutely agree.
Thank you, Rian. Definitely.
I'm gonna end on that note. And again, I thank you both for your time and your inputs, very valuable. And we will speak again soon.
Thank you. See you again.
Thank you, Rian. Chat soon.